Eels. A song about suicide. Yeah, I heard that song. I used to be really into eels. I went through a period. Everybody goes through periods, right? I went through a period where I was, when CDs were still a thing, and I was buying every Eels CD I would buy. A lot of good stuff. Very depressed dude. And, at the end of the day, honestly, Mark Oliver Everett, the guy behind Eels, is really kind of trite, really, in all his suffering. But, just typical of, a sort of artist that is anti-life, kind of. I'm not against it. I think a lot of great artists made by nihilists and people who would be anti-natalist. That's what we're going to talk about because of the Palm Springs clinic bombing. Here's the Reuters report. A bomb kills one near California fertility clinic. FBI calls it terrorism. There's video of the event. A bomb exploded near a reproductive health facility in Palm Springs, California on Saturday, killing one person and injuring at least four in an incident the FBI called an, quote, intentional act of terrorism, unquote. The one person killed was the guy driving the car, apparently. And the clinic wasn't seeing patients on, I guess maybe because it's a weekend day. And I haven't seen how badly injured any of the people were. They've already identified the guy. News accounts won't identify him. Somebody on Twitter did. The authorities have a person of interest in the investigation and are not searching for a suspect. Akil Davis, assistant director of the FBI's Los Angeles field office, told reporters he provided no further details. The person killed was near a vehicle that had been blown to pieces outside the clinic operated by American Reproductive Centers. The bomb, which detonated before 11 a.m., was either in or near a car parked outside the clinic when it exploded. Okay, again, more about it being an act of terrorism. Yeah, so somebody here on X, Aaron Cruz, identifies the guy, and who knows, maybe she's wrong, right? But here she is identifying Guy Edward Bartkus is a developer. Developer of what? Like a website developer? What? Real estate developer? Come on, Aaron. Guy, probably fucking code, right? Probably a guy who writes code. Something wrong with those people. Guy Edward Bartkus is a developer, and this is his website, which includes a list of the people who made him. A list of the people who made him. I think she means influenced him. And a confession on why he decided to bomb an IVF clinic. It was an IVF clinic, not an abortion clinic. He's probably been planning the bombing since February 24th, 2025, when the website URL was first registered. She, in a subsequent tweet, writes, on Guy Edward Bartkus's website, there is 30 minutes of audio that goes into explicit detail on why he planned to bomb an IVF clinic. Audio is too long to upload, so here is video. He calls parents, quote, the real killers, unquote, and calls himself a pro-mortalist. And of course, also he was a proponent of I don't know what the differences there are, slight or maybe not so slight differences between anti-natalists and people calling themselves Efilist, and Efil is life backwards. It's how daft it is, really. And I don't reject it outright, mind you. I want to approach it here with you from a generous perspective. I want to resist. As in any case, the automatic knee-jerk response was just to say, that's just fucking stupid. They're anti-life. but I want to approach it and consider it because it kind of fascinates me how we got to this. Anyway, here's his audio manifesto. We'll try and listen to a little bit of it. It's pretty
Okay, so I figured I would just
obnoxious.
make a recording explaining why I've decided to bomb an IVF building or clinic. um, Basically, it just comes down to I'm angry that I exist, and that
Aren't we all?
nobody got my consent to bring me here. And I know what you're gonna say. How could we have got your consent because you didn't exist? Blah blah blah. Exactly the point. There's no way you can get consent to bring someone here, so don't fucking do it, right? If you're gonna try to say something really fucking retarded, like,
And you know this guy sucks because it's all this, right? It's just everybody's so stupid for not just instantly, grasping, the elegant obviousness of, the anti-natalist position. And they talk about consent. Oh, I didn't get my consent to live, which to me strikes me as absolutely nuts, right? And it's sort of, the pathological lunatic extension of, the classic liberal idea of the individual with rights. And you could even say, of a Christian perspective of people made in the image of God, that we should have our consent to exist, that we should have given our consent. They can't conceive that in the broader world of being, in the broader world of existence, consent is meaningless. And they cannot conceive of a world where our consent doesn't really mean anything, that we don't really have a right to say, I should or should not exist. And that's an absurd idea.
well, since you don't exist, you don't have a consent status, and therefore we don't have to get consent. This really isn't any different from saying, "Oh, well, the girl's unconscious, so I can't get
It is kind of different, yeah.
I can't get her consent to have sex with her, so therefore it's okay because I can't. There's no way to even ask for the consent, right?" So, I mean, if you actually think that's a good argument against what I've said, right, you're absolutely retarded. Your brain, it's very childish and retarded, right? Um,
Okay, that's it.
and before you say, "Ooh, that's ad hominem," I said the word retard.
Not ad
No, I made.
hominem. That's not. Oh God. Yeah, and he's worried that he'll get called out for using retard as a slur. Okay. It's funny that they retain a lot of their liberal ideas, or really very conventional liberal ideas, right? They're probably, for the most part, of the left, right? Um, and that, but ultimately, of course, antinatalism. I guess, there are probably levels like anything else, and there are shades, and there are different names they give to different sects. But the most extreme view is that all life should be ended because it entails suffering, and it's evil to perpetuate it. And of course, ultimately, they're against sentience because you realize, okay, they're talking about consent. What about animal life? What about plant life? There's no. Are they looking for consent there?
an argument, and then I called you a retard, fucker. So it's not ad hominem. Ad
Oh
hominem
God.
is when someone just name calls, and that's it. That's what ad hominem is, fuckhead.
Actually,
Ah,
no, that's not what it is. But okay, we're not going to get
you
bogged
people,
down.
some of you motherfuckers are just too fucking stupid. Okay, anyway,
Well, you realize too, when you hear a lot of these guys, that their lives are miserable, of course. And I don't want to, like I said, I want to take it. I want to take it with generosity. I want to come at it objectively as possible. Be precisely because your reaction to it is so automatic. No, let me consider what they're saying. And I have my own ideas. But you see these guys, and they're just like, they're furious. They're furious that anybody could disagree with them. They don't even seem aware of how counterintuitive, obviously, their philosophy is. You know, they take a certain pride, like all people do, of a radical bent, that they are sort of the Gnostics, they are the ones, the truly enlightened, and all the rest of us are benighted, and they're this vanguard of human enlightenment. And of course, that being enlightenment is precisely what these guys don't want to account for, or they discount. To me, it's not, I don't base my philosophy of life on the pleasure principle, right? What is the total net effect of life? Is there more suffering out there than there is pleasure, or more suffering out there than joy? Uh, you know, that's not really how it works, even if you could quantify these things. You know, my view is sort of reactionary right wing, in that I accept there's a great degree of suffering, and it might be simply that us common people suffer. We live lives that seem utterly meaningless and pointless, so that some few elite can lead humanity through enlightenment, through discovery, perhaps, finally, through our arrival at some point at an understanding of what this is, right? At our arrival somehow of a perspective upon life, which I agree with these guys in ways it doesn't make sense. Life, and you could just objectively take life and, here we are, and even the earth, of course, the universe is going to cease to exist at some point. So the environment which would sustain us won't even exist. We're not eternal. This is what these guys can't get over. It's funny that their embracing of death ultimately comes from fear, the same fear of mortality we all share, the same fear of mortality that creates religion and everything else that they despise. They hate death, and one of their reasons for being anti-life is because all life ends in death, right? And you see these guys talking. I've got a couple of videos lined up, and they all despair of dying, and they'll say, yeah, we know there's a contradiction here. But we just think, life is awful, because they feel cheated that we're not immortal. My view is a little more, my philosophy of life is humility. My philosophy of life is, first off, I cannot know. And to presume I know, like the natalists, they're the ultimate. Everybody has to presume to know. Everyone who philosophizes has to take up the vanity of presuming to be able to interpret the uninterpretable, that is, the totality of being, which is nobody can. That's the other reason, besides fear of mortality, the reason we create God, if in fact he is just our creation and not a true divinity up there, is because we cannot know. And that is, to me, the better part of religion, is that it understands that the human reason itself cannot arrive at an understanding, and it is not for us to know. So I take life as awful as it is, and I'll get into that. As awful as it can be, as pointless as it seems, I'm going to operate on the presumption that there could be more to it. In fact, my intuition is that there probably is much more to it than simply us high functioning apes, living and dying in these short lifespans, eating, fucking, and shitting, excuse me, for a short period of time and then dying. That in fact there is more to it. That in fact sentience and reason and our quest for this knowledge, the same quest that can lead us into dead ends like anti-natalism, justifies it entirely on the notion that there might be, or probably is, there certainly is some higher understanding to be had. But these miserable anti-natalists who are just so unhappy with what they feel cheated, right? They will say that their parents committed evil by creating them because they will suffer. Rather than take that point of view, which I see as just the ultimate vanity. And they love to quote Ecclesiastes, by the way. I'll take the other position. I cannot know, and it's not up to me. And furthermore, suffering isn't all that bad. Certainly not for me. I've suffered plenty. I've been miserable plenty. I've felt depression. I'm not a naturally upbeat guy, you know. Times I've felt life sucks. None of it is enough for me to say. Not only is it enough, it's not enough for me to say, okay, let me just end it early. I'm going to be dead soon enough, right? It's so stupid, Okay, let me play the string out. Yeah, that's a depressing thought. Just playing the string out, right? I'm just going to wait around to die. But yeah, why not? Why the fuck not? Let me hurry it up. It is a coward's way out, as they say. Anyway, here's some more of this genius.
Anyways,
Anyways,
so yes, the point is obviously you can't get people's consent to bring them here, so don't do it. It's that fucking simple, right? This is not complicated logic. This is not complicated ethics, okay?
no, it certainly isn't.
So, anyways, all right. So I have written some things down here. I tried to kind of order them in a way that makes sense, just because I have a lot of things to say, and yeah. So hopefully there's some order to
a
recording here.
consciousness.
But anyways, so yeah. So the reason I'm wanting to get the fuck out of this whole life game is basically, I guess it comes down to I'm not interested in being a life addict, right? So I really never wanted to do this life drug.
Oh, Jesus. God, it's so silly, right? It's just like this idea of consent where consent is meaningless in non-existence. He's going to talk about the life drug as if there's something outside of life. First off, you don't know what non-existence is, all right? We don't know if there's more to it or not. Sometimes I have this profound impression that life is this force that we cannot sense, this mass force like gravity or light or something that acts through us, and that it comes from outside our sphere and it acts on our physical world, right? And we're just the physical elements that it interacts with and creates, and that there's some greater purpose behind it, but that's just an intuition, and just like these guys are operating entirely on an intuition that, okay, this is all there is to life, it's all suffering, and humanity's never going to get any farther than this, and sentience and reason and enlightenment are useless because of the suffering and mortality. So, again, in the extreme cases like this guy, they not only want to off themselves, they want to stop life, right? Okay, so here's his website. This is what he posted. I guess it's still up. Yeah, Phil, he's an avid Redditor. And it's like somebody said somewhere, probably on X, it's just like the ultimate Reddit philosophy, right? It's just, to me, it's Reddit realized. Reddit transcendent, This is where Reddit goes. If you apply all the energy and thought and logic of Reddit and see it through, this is where you end up with, like this guy, God, you fucking assholes just don't get. You just don't get how wise I am. I'm going to kill you. Here he is. Welcome. Here you can download the recorded stream of my suicide. So he recorded it. And bombing of an IVF clinic! Exclamation point. Please do redistribute, upload wherever you can. This website won't stay up for long. And there's a download, of course. It's not. Oh, yeah. I forgot. I think I archived this, so I didn't know why I clicked on that. I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. All right. Let me see if it's still up. Pro-mortalism. Yeah, it's still up. Share this tab. All right. Possible FAQs. Why have you done this? In the download directory, you should be able to find an MP3 file where I explain. That's what we were just listening to, I guess. But basically, I'm a pro-mortalist. Blaze explains what this is quite well. Also, Blaze is he has offed himself. Blaze is this Indian dude who was a luminary in their circles, right? And had his little web page, a little YouTube channel where he talked about this stuff. We'll go check out Blaze's web. He's funny too. Also, here's a backup I made of his channel in case it ever gets taken down. Please download it. Pro-mortalist? So you're just pro-psycho killers? No. Understand your death is already a guarantee, and you can thank your parents for that one. All a pro-mortalist is saying is, let's make it happen sooner rather than later, and preferably peaceful rather than some disease or accident, to prevent your future suffering and, more importantly, the suffering your existence will cause to all the other sentient beings. So what is the end goal? The end goal is for the truth, Efilism, to win. And once it does, we can finally begin the process of sterilizing this planet of the disease of life. Life can only continue as long as people hold the delusional belief that it is not a zero-sum game, causing so he's saying it is a zero-sum game, yeah, causing senseless torture and messes it can never, or only partially, clean up. I think we need a war against pro-lifers. It is clear at this point that these people aren't only stupid, they simply do not care about the harm they are perpetuating by being willing agents for a DNA molecule. He means for genes. Molecules doesn't really make any sense here, but here you see, and I think I saw one of the other guys mention it. So here is evidence that these guys may have been influenced by the book The Selfish Gene by, who's the guy? He was a famous atheist, right? So that was his gig. He's a professional atheist, right? British sort of celebrity scientist. Just kind of became a dork. Anyway, the selfish gene holds it. You know, you can understand life by viewing it, any living thing, as being composed of genes that are all selfish in their drive to reproduce, right? And that's how you understand evolution, and that's how you understand life. That's why you're here, because a bunch of genes sort of working in concert or an accidental concert have come together and using you to perpetuate themselves. And you can see how this would be a sort of appealing idea to these guys. Because, you know, it's the genes. It's not you. You know, the genes didn't get your consent to assemble you. This should not be seen as tolerable to any intelligent and caring person. Don't be fooled by the ones who play stupid and pretend they don't understand these simple truths. It's just their way of playing with you and saying, quote, fuck you, we don't care, unquote. A lot of psychos are attracted to philosophy. Uh, really? Because they love to play mind games with people. Their intent is not to find any kind of truth, it is to have fun fucking with you. Most online debates I've seen are clearly not really debates. It's one person fooling another into thinking it's a debate, when in reality, the one doing the fooling has no intent of changing their mind on anything. Well, that's true, certainly. I see that all the time. And sometimes it's both parties, ha ha. No, yeah, no. I agree. Most debates you've seen are not engaged in, usually on both sides, are not really engaged in good faith. We go into debates pretending, oh, we're going to have this little contest where we use reason and objectivity to arrive at the truth. But even that isn't possible, because what's really going on is we have different interests. We're defining our interests in different ways, and we're taking those different interests, which cannot be reconciled, and we're trying to 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 put our interests over the other guys by fooling them, by pretending. I'm going to trick you out of your interests by pretending we share interests. I mean, this is endlessly. This is most debate. I mean, genuine good faith debate is rare, far more rare than this sort of fakery that we don't even see we're doing, right? You know, honestly, everybody would enter into these debates with a very different sort of mindset. We go into arguments looking to win arguments, right? You know, uh, we don't go into arguments seeking to find the truth and saying, golly, if the other guy turns out to be right, I will change. No, we have interests. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having competing interests. I think we'd be better off, especially like us, all of us here. We sort of are on the losing end of our define. We define our interests about around our culture and biology, and our white people, Europeans, whatever you want to call it. And we would be better off just embracing that and saying, we're not, our problem with other ethnicities isn't an objective argument, an objective debate that we're having. They want things, we want things, and honestly, this is frankly an amoral way of looking at it. But I think, but I think the moral way of looking at it is false. There is no moral way of looking at it. What's moral is my interests. I know that sounds wrong, but that's the reality of it. That's the reality of life. And you should accept it and be honest about it and say, no, I'm not. I'm not like these guys. I'm pretending to set the world to right? I want to do away with all suffering, or I want to, I operate on this, zero sum calculation about, the sum total of suffering or joy that is in the world. That's horseshit. You can't quantify those things anyway. And suffering's underrated. Suffering is good for you. Imagine a world without suffering. Just think of it. A world without suffering. If it was all just, it would be the mouse experiment, the mouse utopia experiment, right? It's kind of where we're going. The mouse utopia experiment, where, they took away they put these mice in this little colony and they just give them all the food they need, and they get nothing they have to worry about. And of course, it turns into this dystopia right away, and they stop breeding, for one thing. It's pretty nuts. All right. What group of philosophies does this all relate to? Negative utilitarianism, Efilism, abolitionist veganism, basically philosophies that have realized religion is retarded. But there's you know what's retarded? Using the word retarded is retarded. But there's objective value in the universe, and this guy doesn't know how to write, but I'm not sure what he's saying here. But there is objective value in the universe, and it lies in the harm being experienced by sentient beings. Um, Again, he's just applying the pleasure principle here. And I think what he's trying to say is, the objective value in the universe is negative because of harm being experienced by sentient beings. Yeah, see, I don't know what he's trying to say. Because in other contexts, he's like, sentience is kind of the problem. Sentient beings are the problem. We, humans, above all, are the problems, sort of, existing as we do on this hierarchy of life, life being the problem because it creates suffering. But you can't have suffering without life. You can't have anything, presumably, without life. We don't know. We can never know non-existence. For all we know, it is sheer hell. For all we know that, for all we know is that we come out of hell and we get a brief. Here's what I can out dark these people, right? And as dark as they think they are, because a lot of this is just them vainly trying to pose as being darker people than you. It's entirely possible that this life we live, for all of its dissatisfactions, is in fact a respite from hell, that we come out of hell, real hell, just burning and fire, continual suffering, and that we get to come out in the sun briefly and do this where we experience some joy and some variety of life. And then we die and we go right back into the shit. What if that's it? And what if that's what we sense, in our seemingly irrational resistance to death, to mortality, right? In this deep fear, right? Because one of the crowds, I think, probably Schopenhauer, said something about death. This consolation, as he saw it, with mortality was, it's not a problem because when I cease to exist, kind of like these guys, I'm not going to experience it, right? I'm going to be here and then I'm not going to be here, and that's not a problem because non-existence, it's just a negative state. It doesn't carry any suffering, any awareness, right? And all the problem with death, and I'm sure this has been said many, many times, of course, the real problem with death is the anticipation of it. It's the dying. Being dead is not as bad to the mind. It's not as fearsome in the mind as the dying part. I don't know about that, though. For me, the non-existence kind of chills me to the bone. Rushton Rohrer says, it's a curious idea to reproduce when you don't even like life. Yeah, Michelle Welbeck, The Elementary Particles. Yeah. And these guys are funny. Yeah, because they have, they're going on living, and, they can't be consumed with this idea all the time, right? And for each one of these people, there are different levels there. Some of them, no single one of them is consumed by this idea all the time. Because, like I always say, if denial gets a bad rap because in life, if you kept in the forefront of your mind the reality of mortality, you wouldn't be able to get out of the bed. You wouldn't in the morning. You wouldn't be able to do anything, right? You would just be so depressed and so disillusioned, that yeah, you could not function. So you have to go really through life on this purposeful delusion, almost like you're going to live forever. You have to pretend you're going to live forever, right? You kind of do, because if you start thinking too much, it's, and again, that's the irony of the anti-natalist point of view. Is I think it all starts with fear of mortality. It all starts with this idea, why do I have to die? And that, and of course, is a love of life. One would say even an undue love of life, an addiction in this guy's phraseology uh, with life. You know, a lack of acceptance that okay, I mean, for one thing, these guys talk about consent like it exists in non-existence. Like it's a meaningful term here, when in fact life, of course, it 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 actually gives the lie to the liberal idea of the sort of sanctity of the individual, that individual rights can be the basis for society, for life, for everything, right? This idea, because you didn't, precisely because you cannot consent to living in the first place, and you cannot consent to dying, you don't get a choice, right? And that should tell you, above all, as an individual, you are not all powerful. You are, in fact, powerless. Uh, you have very limited agency in this world. Um, but they don't want to accept that, I think, is the problem. Thank you, Art, for the suggestion. We'll take it on advisement. Uh, Listen, okay, let's just go to the last question here. What finally put you over the edge? He writes. I've known for a few years now I wasn't going to allow myself to make it past my 20s. I can say one thing about this guy. At least he rode like he talked, right? He walked the walk. Uh, you know, trying to kill other people's kind of a dick move. Robert, is that your name? Whatever your name was. We've already forgotten your name. Uh, yeah, trying to take out others on the basis of this very, glib philosophy of yours is kind of a dick move, but I will at least give you credit. Uh, I mean, some of these other guys are well into middle age preaching this shit. You're thinking, hey, dude, what are you waiting for, right? And again, the logical conclusion of all this is not just that you should all off yourselves. No, the way these guys talk about life being inherently evil uh, is that they should all be serial killers. They should, you know, if they were as smart as they think they are, they would have some genius among them somewhere who's creating a doomsday device, right? The one giant bomb that's going to blow up the world, right? Maybe they don't like that idea because all the plants will die too. They're not against plant life, they're against sentience. But you wonder, okay, so where's the dividing line? Are they against all animals? And I think, again, I read. I've only started paying attention to this shit since yesterday, so I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't even be doing a broadcast about it. But you wonder, some of them I know are just against all animal life. I wonder if they're against plant life, because you could argue that plants have some agency. There are plants and they react anyway. But I think most of them are really anti-human. They're misandrists, you know. And so you wonder, okay, where's the dividing line? Should we just get rid of all the humans and we're going to leave the apes? So what's going to happen with the apes? The high perform, gorillas, baboons, orangutans. What are the really smart apes? Orangutans, uh, chimpanzees. They're. Can we trust the world to them? What if they evolve into this? What if they develop? What if their frontal cortexes develop and they start talking and they get sentient at the level we are sentient. Anyway, it's just a problem, really. For them, it really is that everything should cease to exist. I mean, because I think they believe in evolution. They're not anti-evolution. They characterize evolution as itself, from that selfish gene point of view. Evolution is this evil that's using us and causing our suffering. We're like in the Matrix, right? And whatever this thing is, life, is using us for energy. It's using us as the vessels to perpetuate itself, right? So with that point of view you can't really leave a blade of grass standing, because if you think that evolution's real, then you know that it could just all start happening over again, right? I mean, if the theory of evolution holds, there's a name for the first, supposedly theoretic first living thing, right? It's mind-boggling to think about reproduction. It doesn't make any sense. But, of course, if you leave, the earth mostly as it is, right, with water and plants, it's only a matter of time before that, that whatever it is, that magical occurrence happens, and we're right back, it's just a few short eons, from a couple of fucking little something splitting up in the water, right? Some little cell splitting itself in water, right? And it's a few million years later, and you've got fucking the Kardashians and stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's, maybe these guys are right. Everybody's bailing out because they don't want to hear me talk. All right, I'm down with it. I agree with you. All right, we won't talk. We were going to try. Maybe I'll try come at this some other time. I just can't stand to see you guys bailing out. I fucking hate you for doing it. And the sun's out. Life is good despite all this shit. So why would I sit here and talk to you guys about this horrible subject when I could be out in the sunlight?
Smokestack spitting black soot into the sooty sky. The load on the road brings a tear to the Indian's eye. The elephant won't forget what it's like inside his cage. The ringmaster's telecaster sings on an empty stage. trigger, let me tell you, gave us quite a scare. Goddamn right, it's a beautiful day. Goddamn right, it's a beautiful day. Still is moving to another town, and I don't believe he'll come back. Goddamn right, it's a beautiful day. Goddamn right, it's a beautiful day. Well, I don't know how you're taking all the shit you see. You don't believe anyone. Most of all, don't believe me. Believe you. Goddamn right, it's a beautiful day. Goddamn right, it's a beautiful day. Goddamn right, it's a beautiful day. Goddamn right, it's a beautiful day.